Welcome back into Believe in the Wolfpack. I'm your host, Luke Nichols. We're going to get into some men's basketball today, women's basketball today. Going to get right into it as always. And then later, you'll never guess I was wrong about something in college football. I was pretty sure Dan Lanning was going to be the head coach for Alabama. He decided to stay with Oregon in a strong statement, in a recruiting statement, it seemed like. He posted a video on Twitter, but he's not the head coach. We'll get to that later. But like I said, I'm going to start with men's basketball because they had a big, maybe not big, actually, I shouldn't say that, but they had a nice bounce back win over Louisville this past Saturday. They won 89-83. The story of this game to me was the stupid turnovers and DJ Horn coming off the bench. The stupid turnovers, we had 15 turnovers, 9 of them from starters. Morcell had 3, O'Connell had 3, and Dennis Parker Jr. had 3. I mean, my God, what are we doing? And then DJ Horn off the bench, he had 3. Well, off the bench, take that with a grain of salt because he played 35 minutes. That's the most on the team. O'Connell is right behind him. He played 31. But, I mean, especially in the first half and early in the second half, I want to say, where, we had a nice lead, and then it's like you string together a few really bad turnovers and dumb possessions that almost maybe a turnover would have been better. Um, and you're just like, what are they doing? Why are they keeping Louisville in this game? Because Louisville, yeah, it's an 89-83 win. You shot the lights out, 54% from the field, 50% from 3, 88% from the free throw line. That's a great game numbers wise, but Louisville is 6-10, 1-4 in conference play now. That's not a good team. To let up 83 points to Louisville is defensively, that's not something to really, be proud of. You're not going back to the locker room saying, like, oh, wow, our defense was really on it today. You're saying, hey, our offense kind of saved us that game, putting them 89 points. I mean, because Louisville, they shot great as well. 47% from the field, 53% from 3, and 76% from the line. The fact that they made less and took less threes and then were worse from the free throw line, even though they shot more free throws, is the reason that you won this game. They're 19-25 from the free throw line. And they even got 14 points from Johnson and 15 from Williams off the bench. I mean, it was not the best defensive game. I really thought after, the first half, we jumped out to a decent lead, kind of felt like it was going to be a nice kind of cruise to a win, pull away in the second half. But towards the end of the first half, right before halftime, kind of let them crawl back into it. And it just, no. And then even to start the second half, they went on, I think, like a 6-0, 8-0 run. And there was one instance where they got a bucket, and you're thinking, all right, you got to call a timeout here. You should definitely call a timeout here. It's kind of ugly. Nobody looks good. Defense looks bad. Offense looks worse almost. But Keats let him play, missed a shot on the other end, on the offensive end, and then give up a bucket right after. and then he calls the timeout. You got to call that timeout earlier. You have to call that timeout the possession before. Don't even worry about the offensive possession, because then you can at least, every time a coach calls a timeout after the defense has been playing poorly and you start with the ball, and even just you get the ball out of the timeout, you absolutely have to score after that. You have to get a bucket coming off of your own timeout and you start with the ball. So I think that would have been a good spot to just stop the bleeding, really, try to halt their momentum and just come out and with a good action, set play. Everyone is focused. Everyone understands what they have to do and whatnot. But whatever. I mean, I didn't like the decision to not call timeout, but you won the game in the end. Mo Diarra had a pretty solid game off the bench. He had 7 points, a block, and 11 total rebounds, but did have 4 personal fouls. Middlebrooks ended up fouling out. But DJ Horn coming off the bench, he was 9 for 14 from the field, 6 of 9 from deep, and with 27 points and 2 steals. Pretty solid. That's a great game that's an incredible game, but I don't think he should continue to come off the bench. Even if it is, he doesn't immediately start the game, but maybe it just messes with the rotations. I still think you want him starting and playing with the starters for the most part because I mean, even with this big offensive game, the starters not the best overall. O'Connell, he played 31 minutes. He actually played pretty well. He made a lot of smart decisions, and he was 3 for 3 from deep. So that was, most of he had 11 points and 6 assists, but he's mostly going to be in there to distribute the ball, to just, set up actions for guys and be a playmaker. Dennis Parker with 8 points, only took 3 shots and played 21 minutes. Jaden Taylor, 4 points. Marcel, 13 points. And then DJ Burns with 13. So I still want DJ Horn in the game just to play with the rest of those guys. But I'm liking what I'm seeing from O'Connell. I feel like he started off kind of slow. Let me see what his numbers were earlier on in the year. So the transfer, obviously, but I mean, I guess. No, yeah, okay. So, yeah, Mike O'Connell started off the year playing 17, 20 minutes here and there, 14, 13 minutes, only 4 minutes against Tennessee, 18 minutes. But really, ever since the St. Louis game where we won 82-70, he's been playing at least 20 minutes a game. And he's really been a great distributor now that I'm looking at it just on his game log. I knew that he was, but just kind of seeing it, I guess, on paper or on screen, actually really shows how good of a passer he is. He's had 5 assists. This is in the last, I think 7 or 8 games. 5 assists, 6, only 1 against Notre Dame, but I mean, nobody could make a shot that game, so that's an anomaly. 5 assists against Virginia, 2 against North Carolina, and 6 against Louisville. So he's in there. He's going to distribute the ball. He's going to get guys open. He's going to set up guys to make big shots. So I wouldn't mind seeing him play alongside DJ Horn, but for the most part, I think you got to flip Mike O'Connell and DJ Horn again. Just, get DJ Horn starting. He needs to be starting. Even for, the mental aspect of it. Yeah, guys can say all they want. I don't care where I, start the game on the bench, starting whatever, as long as I'm in and contributing. And if it's helping the team, yeah, blah, 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 whatever. He can say that all he wants. And he's a good teammate for saying that if he does. And any teammate is, but I think everybody can agree just for personal reasons and the mentals, like I said, being a starter and then moving to the bench isn't the best thing for him. I just recently watched an interview. I forget who was. I think Maxey. Was he talking to Shams? No, but it was Tyrese Maxey from the Sixers, and he was talking about how getting moved to the bench last year when Rivers was the coach, it really kind of messed with him. And he was talking to his mom every day, just trying to get through it, just trying to, be better and just get back to that starting role. And now this year, he's most likely going to be an all-star because he's been starting. Not many guys are going to say hey, yeah, moving to the bench after being a starter, it really kind of messed with me. It really kind of, put me in a bad spot, made me second guess myself, but he came out and said it. And I imagine he's not the only one who felt that way. Even guys who are, aging veterans in college or the NBA who have to move to the bench, like Westbrook and Carmelo Anthony, and maybe soon James Harden. Those guys, especially Carmelo and Russ, they took a while to really adapt to a bench player coming off the bench guy, a 6-man role for a little bit. But back to the rest of the men's college basketball world, a ton of upsets, a ton of movement in the top 25 that just dropped as I'm recording this Monday afternoon. Happy MLK Day, by the way. Or if you're listening on Tuesday, happy belated MLK Day. Purdue ended up beating Penn State, so nothing for them, even though they already lost earlier in the week. But TCU beat Houston and gave Houston their second loss of the year, along with their second loss of the week. They were undefeated until just this past week. Kansas snuck one out against Oklahoma. That's a big win for them, just to not get upset and stay alive. Hunter Dickinson is putting up huge games night in and out. I feel like I messed up that phrase, but whatever. We're going to move past it. He had 24 points, 14 rebounds, and 5 blocks. That's unbelievable. And then Texas A&M beat Kentucky in overtime. Kentucky had a lot of chances to win that game. I feel like they had a decent chance to win it at the end of regulation, but they just couldn't hit the shot. Antonio Reeves still played pretty well for them with 22 points, but that is their third loss of the year. First loss in conference. Washington State took down Arizona. Arizona was on fire to start the year. They beat Duke early on and 3-2 in the Pac-12 with 4 total losses now. Not looking too good. Duke actually ended up winning. Wisconsin won. BYU won. There was one more. Yeah, New Mexico beat San Diego State by 18. New Mexico, unranked, took down number 19 San Diego State. Clemson ended up winning. They needed that one after a pair of losses earlier. And then Texas lost. But that brings me to the movement in the AP poll. Just a ton. We have a new number one. UConn is the new number one. They move up 3 spots. I kind of expected that since Purdue lost. Did Kansas lose this week? Yeah, Kansas, I think, lost this week. Houston lost 2 games. Tennessee lost. Kentucky just lost. Yeah, Kansas did lose. I was talking about that last show. Whatever. Yeah, Purdue is number 2. Kansas stays at 3. North Carolina moves up after demolishing Syracuse yesterday and beating NC State. Whatever. They move up to 4th. They moved up 3 spots. But I think, like I said in the last episode, them winning and just not being upset plays more of a factor because of all the other teams just losing. Just the top teams are losing all this week. Tennessee only dropped down 1 spot after their loss to Mississippi State. Houston dropped 3 spots. They're at 5 now. Duke moved up 4 spots. They're 7th. Kentucky dropped 2 spots. They're 8th. Baylor moved up 5 spots to 9th. Memphis moved up 3 spots to 10th. Wisconsin moved up 4 spots. Arizona dropped 4 spots. Auburn. It's ridiculous. Everybody's moving from 9 to 18. 9 teams either moved up or down at least 3 spots in the rankings. Illinois just lost to Maryland. They moved down 4 spots. Oklahoma, their loss to Kansas, they moved down 6 spots. Utah State moved up 4 spots. Marquette dropped 6 spots. Creighton moved up 4. This is just in between that, intermediate area in the rankings. This is a ton of movement. It's ridiculous. NC State is still getting a few votes. They got 8 votes to be in the top 25. They just got to keep winning. And if they can start winning some games convincingly, that's going to help their case. But they still have a lot of work to do in my mind and in the voters' mind. There were 5 teams that dropped. No, 4 teams. I can't read. There were 4 teams that dropped from the rankings. Colorado State, Gonzaga, Clemson dropped, and FAU. But yeah, if you look at it, oh my God, nearly the only team that didn't. Oh, wait, no, this is the. What AP poll was I looking at? This one had. Huh. That's actually weird. On, the AP website that I'm looking at right now, they have Kansas 3rd. But on ESPN, they have Kansas 4th and North Carolina 3rd. And they also have Duke 6th. And ESPN has Duke 6th and AP has Duke 7th. That's weird. I'm going to go off the AP Associated Press where ESPN gets this from because it just dropped. And it says, released January 15th. All voters week 11. Weird. I'm going to go off the AP. Regardless, if you look on the AP website, the only teams that didn't move was Iowa State, Texas Tech, Ole Miss, Dayton, and Kansas. Everybody else had some kind of movement and major movement at that. Ton of yeah. Men's basketball was ridiculous this week. Not as ridiculous. I mean, the women's games were not as crazy and ridiculous. Luckily, the NC State women's team bounced back in a huge way. Crushed Virginia 93 to 66. I mean, it was just complete demolition. Nearly, the entire starting 5. in double figures. The only one not in double figures was Sanaya Rivers, who had 7 assists, so that'll play. Mimi Collins, 14 points. Zoe Brooks, 19 points. Isaiah James, 15 points. Hayes, 17 points. I mean, yeah, the entire starting five just played great. As a team, they shot 48% from the field, 43% from three, which we'll take. Lacey Steele had 13 points off the bench. It's an incredible game. It's a game that you needed to win. Just get it out of the way. You don't have to worry about it. And just hope that some other teams can beat themselves up as as uh as the weeks go on. Because that's exactly what happened. Florida State and Virginia Tech played Sunday, which was yesterday, and Florida State won 89-81. It was at Florida State, so probably a big disadvantage for Virginia Tech. I don't remember who was favored in that game, but Florida State did pull out the win, and they moved up 6 spots in the new women's AP poll. Virginia Tech dropped 3 spots, and they are now Virginia Tech is now 14th, and Florida State is now 15th, which if I was a Florida State fan, I'd be a little bit annoyed because it's like we just beat them and now we're 1 spot behind them. Florida State does have 1 more loss than Virginia Tech, so it's kind of valid. But at the same time, if you just look at it on a game by game basis, it's like, what are we doing here? Which actually, I didn't want to get too into the last game just because for NC State, just because it's like, all right, we kind of expected to win that game. Why not? Like, kind of had to, especially after uh, uh, losing the last game. See, I still Virginia Tech because played Florida State and Virginia Tech back to back, so I still get confused on which is which that we lost to. But yeah, you just lost to Virginia Tech, so you beat Virginia. But it's still ridiculous to me because UCLA lost this week. They dropped to 5th. They were 2nd. How is Colorado still ahead of NC State? Beat them by 18 a month or two ago by now. And we're still one spot, Jesus, 1 spot behind them. Really couldn't get that out. But Iowa's 2, South Carolina's staying at 1. But it's ridiculous. How is Colorado still above? We have the same record. Haven't, whatever. We're 4th now in the AP poll, moved up 2 spots since UCLA lost. And not as much. Well, Baylor actually dropped 8 spots. They just lost to Iowa State. That's a big drop off for them. Still a ton of movement in the women's AP poll, but not as drastic as the men's, I think. The next 2 games really should be relatively easy. Now, again, conference games, you can never pencil them in as easy. But the next one against Miami and Duke, both kind of middle of the pack in the ACC. Duke is 3-2 in conference play. What is that? 11-5 overall. Miami is 1-4 in conference play and 11-5 overall. So I'm really just hoping for back-to-back just stoppings. That Miami game is, what is that, Thursday? 16, 17. Yeah, that's Thursday at 6 o'clock. And then the men's team, pardon me, their next game, let me find it here. I believe it's tomorrow. I believe it's the 16th. Yeah, they play Wake Forest tomorrow at 7 o'clock. Wake Forest, they've been pretty solid this year. They're 12-4, 4-1 in conference. So that's going to be a tough game. That is a home game, so that's going to be nice. But if you can win that Wake Forest game, that'll be, it's not a top 25 win, but being, they're a top tier team in the ACC from the literal standings, that should be a good win if you could pull it off. So going to take a short break. When we come back, going to get into a quick little college football talk about the new Alabama head coach and why I don't have any expectations for him. Welcome back in. Going to get to some college football. And just so we're clear, I am wearing a shirt. It's a Pop-Tart Bowl crew neck, as you can see here. Although we lost the game, whatever. You think of the entertainment more than you think of the game itself. So, whatever. It was hilarious. I do hope that it is one of the college football playoff games next year. I actually forget if they're going to do away with the bowl names and the bowl games technically for the college football playoff, since it's going to be 12 teams. So you just have more games and more bowl games. So I don't think they're going to get rid of the names, but I forget, honestly. I don't think they are. I hope they don't, because it would just be hilarious being like the have the Pinstripe Bowl. I think it's still the Pinstripe Bowl, or just the worst names as a bowl game. And just good. Just keep the bowl games, get the hijinks going again. It'll be great. But into Kalen DeBoer. I keep forgetting his first name, but Kalen seems like a weird first name, but whatever. Kalen DeBoer, new Alabama football head coach. And like I said, I have zero expectations for him. You may be thinking, why do you have zero expectations? Their team is still great. They only lost Isaiah Bond and one recruit, I think, in 2025. Their team's still going to be amazing. Yes, I get it. Their 2024 recruiting class is still unbelievable. They still have the 2 5-star recruits. They still have the quarterback coming in that I need to find his name because Julian Sayin. I've had it in my head the entire time. They still have Julian Sayin, one of the top quarterbacks in this class. I think he's the third in this class. So you have him. You'll probably maybe not sit, but you'll probably have him behind Milroe or whoever starts next year. Maybe he starts. I don't think so. It's kind of rare to see a true freshman come in and start and have major success, unless you're Johnny Manziel. But I don't think he starts. I think they'll wait a year for him. But even outside of that, coming in after Nick Saban is impossible to live up to. What are you gonna do? It's like being the first guard, or it's like being the first guard to play for the Bulls after Michael Jordan. It's like being the first team after Michael Jordan left for the Bulls. How are you going to live up to that? It's the same thing with Belichick. Like Jared Mayo, the new head coach for the Patriots. Do I think he's going to be a good head coach? I have no idea, because I have no expectations for him, because he's replacing a guy who won you 6 Super Bowls. He's probably going to be under a ton of criticism. He's probably going to be constantly in the media being talked about if he can get it done or not, because they're just so used to winning Super Bowls that it's like, how do you continue that? This is the same thing with DeBoer. Alabama is so used to just being in the SEC championship, being in the national championship, winning both of those games. How is he going to continue that? It's nearly an impossible ask. If he can have half the career that Saban had at Alabama, he should be considered one of the best coaches of all time, and probably will be. I mean, already, the jumps that he's made to be the Alabama head coach now. 4 years ago, he was the head coach at Fresno State. That's awesome. You go to Fresno State to Washington to Alabama in 4 years. That is incredible. Credit to him. So that alone makes me just, obviously I'm not number one Alabama fan here, and I don't hate Kalen DeBoer for any reason yet. So seeing his path go from Fresno State to Alabama as a head coach within 4 years, that's incredible. Credit to him. That's awesome. I'm surprised Dan Lanning did not take the job. I guess he's that committed and loves Oregon that much. So good for him. I thought that was a strong statement to put out that video, which, like I said, was kind of a recruiting tactic as well. If he's not going to take the Alabama job, I don't know if he ever leaves Oregon unless he's fired. What other job would you want? It's like this and Georgia are, and maybe Ohio State. This Georgia and Ohio State are like the jobs if you want to be a college football head coach. And he had the opportunity. He was the first one to have the opportunity. But again, DeBoer, I do think Alabama's going to take a step back. Just because new year, new regime, it's going to be somewhat of a different offense. It's going to be a different team. It's going to have a different kind of vibe and a different kind of energy around the facility and the stadium and the fans and everything. And that's what I hope Alabama fans can remember, that if you don't make the SEC championship this year, that is okay. You're probably still going to be top 25 a year-long top 25 team, probably top 15, just because of the talent that you have. And again, this year's team wasn't the most talented Alabama team, and they still made the playoff. Is it because of Saban largely? Probably. But it's still, the least talented Alabama team is one of the most talented college football teams year in and year out. It does not matter. They're always going to be top 3, top 5 in talent and just recruits and athletes. It doesn't matter. It could be a bunch of 4 stars. They're going to be the most talented. They're always going to be up there. And that is Kalen DeBoer's biggest challenge, is continuing that kind of streak of Alabama, just always having guys, just always being a powerhouse. He's got to continue to recruit just like Saban did, but obviously Saban was probably the greatest recruiter of all time. Probably. I mean, in recent memory, absolutely, by far, but I don't know if there's ever been a time where it feels like 50% of the top tier talent in the NFL has come from Alabama. So he not only recruits these guys, but he develops them so they succeed at a higher level. I can't imagine how many Alabama players in the NFL and how many Alabama players from the team on the team used to play for the team, saw the news and tried to reach out to him, tried to say something. Oh my God, he probably got flooded. Thousands and thousands of messages, probably just from former players and staff members. I can't imagine. But again, back to DeBoer. If Alabama stays within the top 25 this year, that is a successful year. You cannot have high expectations for this team. You cannot have championship aspirations and dreams for this team. It's your first new head coach in years after you had one of the most successful runs in college football for 10 plus years. So I just hope that the media and Alabama fans alike don't hop on Kalen DeBoer after, once he loses a game next year. Now, if Kalen DeBoer wins a championship next year and they look better, they look incredible, then I'll be annoyed. Then I'll be mad because it's like we can't even get a year without Alabama being in the top 5. Like, come on. So part of me is hoping that we get a break. But even then, with the 12 team, they could still make the playoffs. So who knows, truly. But again, Kalen DeBoer, new head coach at Alabama. Not Dan Lanning, not Lane Kiffin, and not James Franklin, and not D'Amico Ryans. After that beatdown he put on the Browns, he ain't leaving. Come on. It's still funny to me. But Kalen DeBoer, new Alabama head coach. Good luck to him. Everybody keep your expectations low for him, please. I beg of you, keep the expectations low. But for NC State, you never know. Get those expectations up. I'm still excited. I'm still excited for football season already, and it's January. Whatever. I got to contain myself. I should keep my expectations low for the Wolfpack, but whatever. It's fun to dream. It's fun to dream. So that's going to conclude this 13th episode of Believe in the Wolfpack. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.